mean, my training sessions could last up to 6 hours, on a big day leading into a contest like these. So on Tuesday, I leave for the Arnold Classic Africa in Johannesburg, South Africa. And, there were some days where I was doing all 6 events. I'd be there for 6 hours. So, walking with a 1,000-pound yoke and doing a max, 13-inch deadlift and pressing a 420 log for reps, just kind of takes a little while to get through.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Lionheart Radio. We are currently in the beginning stages of summer, and it doesn't matter if you are a gym rat or a weekend warrior or an endurance athlete or some combination of all of them, kind of like myself. Everybody has one thing on their mind, and that is looking good naked. Everybody wants to look good and have some payoff for all of the hard work that they're doing behind the scenes. Everybody at Lionheart Radio is no different, from the host to the people that we have working behind the scenes. Now, if there is one thing that separates us apart, it's essentially the fact that we are not willing to sell you any bullshit. So what we've done is we've taken out the whole crash diet. We've saved you the 6 weeks to the next 6-pack plan. And we've taken all of the knowledge that we have, collectively pooled it together, and put it in a document, a book, that you can download for free on lionheartrad.io. In that book, we have things that are going to help you get sustainably lean. We've got which workouts will help you burn more fat. We have tips on how to keep track of your daily calories and nutrition. And we've even got a glossary in the back with a list of movements and how you can plug them into your programming when you are looking for a desired result. Now, just like the show, everything is free. Go to lionheartrad.io and download your free ebook. As always, thank you for taking this journey with us. We will see you in the gym or at the beach. All right, welcome back to Lionheart Radio. I'm your host, Rick Alexander, founder of Lou Aviv in San Diego, California. And today I'm here with Robert Kearney, who is the world log lift champion, became the champion at 24 years old, and he is a world's strongest man competitor. Rob, thanks for being on today.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thanks for having me.
So before the intro, we got a little bit into some of your competition history, but you want to go over a little bit of that for the people that are listening?
Yeah, definitely. In 2013, when I was 21, I won the North American Strongman Corporation National Championship, and that's when I turned pro. 2014 and 2015, took second place at 105 kilo America's Strongest Man. Competed in 2016 at the 105 kilo World's Strongest Man. Took 7th place. It was one of my worst performances to date. And then also in 2016, won the Log Lift World Championships.
And you have another crack at World's Strongest Man this year as well, right?
Yeah, well, this year I'm going with the heavyweight World's Strongest Man. So this is the big show this time. So I've jumped up a weight class. I'm not cutting down to 105 kilos anymore. So this year's the big time.
Right. So for us Americans that don't know shit about kilos, how much are you weighing when you're competing at 105?
So 105 is 231 pounds, and right now I weigh about 283, so a little bit bigger.
Okay. And at 231, I've done a couple strongmans. That's considered the lightweight, right?
Yeah, that is that. Yeah, at the pro level, that's the lightweight division.
Okay. What do you walk around at when you're competing at 231?
When I was competing at 231, I was walking around somewhere between 245 and 250, and then I would cut down to 231.
Okay.
So it wasn't terrible, but when I competed at lightweight World's Strongest Man last year, the cut was just really tough, and that was kind of the nail in the coffin for me competing at 231. The cut was just really hard and really didn't make it seem worth it anymore.
Mm-hmm. And so were your numbers, were they a lot different? Because by going up a weight class, even though you don't have to cut, are the numbers is there a big gap between the lightweight guys and the open guys?
Yes and no in some events. Like my static strength has always been pretty good. So I have the American, 231 log press record, and I hit a 410 log cleaner press at 231. And my
Jesus.
best now as a heavyweight is recently I hit 455 on the log. So, the numbers are definitely different. But I mean, you look at, some of these 231 guys, you got like Sean DeMarinis from California, who's a 3-time America's Strongest Man in the 231 class. The guy's an unbelievable athlete. I mean, he regularly deadlifts over 800 pounds at 231. He has a 400-pound log press. The guy's a stud athlete. So, you're looking at the difference between weight classes. Yeah, there's obviously differences because you got, guys like Brian Shaw, Eddie Hall for competing in the heavyweights that are just massive men.
Right.
But, these 231 guys are doing stuff that's just as impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to give the listeners a little bit of context, if you got a 410, now 455 log clean and press, what are some of the gym numbers that people could kind of compare to, like your deadlift and maybe your clean and jerk, that kind of thing?
Yeah, my deadlift. So actually, just last week, I did a slightly raised deadlift. I pulled from 12 inches. A standard bar is 9 inches off the floor. I just pulled 905.
Okay.
My squat is in the mid sevens right now. On an axle or a barbell, I can push press, about 420. But usually when I'm going for 1 rep max overhead, I'm a split jerking kind of guy. So I usually split jerk a log when I go for the big numbers.
Mm. Do you find it hard to split jerk and not fall forward? Like I think you see a push jerk a lot with the.
Yeah, push jerk is super popular. I've always been a fan of the split jerk ever since I got into the sport. It's just kind of how I started getting things overhead. So I've kind of become accustomed to it and really kind of fine-tuned it with a log because the diameter of the log is tricky. It definitely does pull you forward a lot more. So, the path of the log is definitely a lot different from a barbell. So it just takes a lot of time and getting used to it and, perfecting it really.
So one of the incredible things I think about your career thus far is the fact that it seems like you started competing at a really high level at a really early age for the sport.
Yeah, I mean, so my whole thing, so I actually started in the sport at 17 years old when I was a senior in high school. And essentially, they offered teen divisions in these local competitions. And I just said, you know what? This is something I really love doing. I want to get good at it. I'm going to jump up into the men's open classes and just get my ass kicked for a year and a half. I think my first 3 or 4 competitions in a row, I took dead last and zeroed like 3 out of the 5 events.
Damn.
And like I said, I mean, I got my ass handed to me for the first year and a half of this sport. But while it was humbling, it just pushed me that much harder to get better and train with guys that were always stronger than me. I was fortunate enough to have a really great training crew early on, training with lightweight pros of, Mike Mastel, Carlos Reyes, these guys from Connecticut that were just unreal athletes. And I just pretty much had to sack up and get strong real quick to be able to keep up with them.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to look like the bitch that had to take the weight off the bar every set instead of, keeping up with them.
Right. What was your athletic background going into strongman?
In high school, I was a football player. And then in the winter season, I was actually a cheerleader. And then my senior year of high school, I was just working out in the spring, and a substitute teacher saw that I was training, and he was also a coach at a CrossFit gym. And he said, hey, you look kind of strong. Why don't you come train with me? So I started training with him at 5 a.m. before school when I was in high school. And then, signed up for my first strongman competition when I was a senior.
Were you into Ole lifting or anything like that prior? Because I'm just wondering because of the split jerk thing.
No, like the split jerk just came to me because I was training at the CrossFit gym. My strict press was fucking horrible. And I'm pretty sure my max on my strict press was like 155 for a year straight. It was horrendous.
Really?
And but I was still able to like split jerk, in the mid 200s when I was like 17, 18 years old. So I just always kind of gravitated towards the split jerk because it made me feel better that I could put heavier weight overhead. And so no real, my barbell clean is pretty horrible still to this day. I can coach it well, but I can't do it myself. So
that's interesting just because I think a lot of people have trouble the opposite, right? It's the technique of getting the jerk down, and then if they just have raw strength, then they're decent.
Yeah, which is what you see a lot at this high level of strongman with the heavyweights. A lot of these guys are just going brute strength and push pressing or even strict pressing some of the weight overhead.
Yeah.
Whereas you'll see me being a little bit more technical and using the split jerk.
What do you attribute to your such a fast growth in strength? Because 155 as a strict press to 455 pound log press in how many years? Probably
8
years. So
yeah.
That's a good amount of time, but that's still a lot.
I think it was just persistence. Surrounding myself with the right people. When I went to college, I went to Springfield College for my undergraduate degree, and they had a powerlifting team there. So I jumped on that right when I got to school, and was just in a community that really pushed everybody to get stronger and kind of not suck, essentially, was what we were going for.
Mm-hmm.
My sophomore year, when I was doing a strongman competition, I met one of my best friends now, Matt Mills, who's also a pro strongman. And he owns a gym that was, 20, 30 minutes away from where I was going to school. Said he was starting to get some strongman equipment. So I started training with him every weekend. He turned pro a year before I did. And, like I said, I think the biggest thing was, the people I surrounded myself with, competing in a class that I knew was probably out of my league. And then also the biggest thing was like staying relatively injury free. Knock on wood, I have only, I tore my meniscus in both of my knees when I was 18 and 19 years old. But those are only really quote unquote major injuries that I've had. And those really aren't that big of a deal. So I've been super fortunate when it comes to staying healthy and keeping my body in line.
Yeah. Once you started getting technique, did you find that your strength, your numbers ramped up pretty quickly? And then from there, it took a while. You see that a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with the overhead stuff, it took a long time to really get the split jerk comfortable with the log. I think with anybody with a log press, it's just weird. It's, like I said before, with the diameter being so big, initiating the dip to get it overhead, fall forward, your elbows will drop, putting a lot of pressure on the front of your knees. Throwing yourself under a log when doing a split jerk is scary as fuck the first couple times you do it.
Mm-hmm.
So the mental component of a split jerk with a log is huge. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand when split jerking a log is just getting over that fear of throwing something over your head while dropping underneath it is a lot bigger than people, really consider first. So I think once those things kind of came into play, and, even still, it took me probably about 6.5 years to really perfect the split jerk on the log. I think the Arnold in 2015, I was competing in the heavyweight amateur world championships, and I hit a 425 log there. And that was kind of like the moment where I knew that, I was going to be good at this lift and really could take it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of the first time that everything kind of came together and the split jerk worked for me at big numbers like that.
Gotcha. And so is this going to be your first Arnold's as a pro?
Yeah. Like I said, I leave tomorrow for the Arnold Africa in Johannesburg. So this will be my first time competing in the Arnold Pro down there, which it's an awesome lineup. I love the events. I'm super excited for the contest. And then, it's also my first time at World's Strongest Man this year. So big year.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned one of your buddies, he went pro before you. So what does it mean to go pro in strongman? And is it more like a pro card, like similar to physique and bodybuilding?
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly it. So the way it works here in the U.S., once you become pro, in order to become a pro, you have to win the amateur national championship, the Arnold Heavyweight World Championship, or a Platinum Plus level competition, which is the highest level amateur competition in the country. Once you become pro, for us, we were lightweight pros, so we won at the 231 weight class. That means you're essentially not allowed to compete as a 231 amateur anymore. You can compete as a heavyweight amateur if you wanted at a local competition, and then now you're eligible to compete at America's Strongest Man. If you become a heavyweight pro, pretty much the only time you can compete then is as a heavyweight pro, and you're not allowed to compete at amateur competitions anymore.
Mm-hmm. So you can never kind of compete back down.
Yeah.
So what does it mean to be pro other than that? Like, is it hard to make a living at strongman? Because it's not the biggest sport out there as far as strength sports go. And you're traveling all over the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely tough. There essentially are only 2-3 people here in the U.S. that are full-time strongmen. Brian Shaw being one of them, and he's a 4-time world's strongest man and arguably the best U.S. strongman ever.
Yep.
Rob Oberst, he's a heavyweight pro strongman, but he's actually doing a lot of movie stuff now. Mm-hmm. So that's where he's making a lot of his money. And then you have Dimitar Savatinov, who's living in Florida, and all he does is compete and travel. The nice thing is that strongman is getting more recognition now. So, for me, going to the Arnold Africa and a World's Strongest Man, there is prize money if you do well. So that's kind of the nice thing about it, that there's more money coming into the sport than there has been in years past, which is exciting for me since I'm just kind of getting to this level.
Mm. It seems like, too, we're in a time right now with social media and things like that where there's a lot of ways to promote yourself outside of the sport. And it seems like that might be the path as well.
Yeah, I mean that's why Rob Oberst is getting into the movie thing. You look at Thor Bjornsson, who is the mountain on the Game of Thrones, and they're going on different avenues to make a living, but it's also giving them the flexibility to have a career and to be able to continue their strongman as well.
What is your day job?
So right now I'm a strength and conditioning coach at a prep school in Massachusetts. So it's a great job. I love it. I work with about 550 student athletes, ranging from Division I full scholarship athletes to some people who have never even seen a soccer ball in real life. So yeah, it's awesome. I work with really talented kids, smart kids, and it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, I like seeing when high level strength athletes / coaches get into the game with student athletes, because when I was growing up, we had the bigger, faster, stronger program that was shit, and everybody did the same shit program.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love what I do.
How do you periodize your training as far as just trying like the splits and the progressions? If people are listening to this and they're wanting to build that maximal strength, do you work in like 12-week cycles where maybe you're just working deadlift, or like how do you break all your training up that way?
It's tough. So a hard part about being at this level of the competition is you don't really know your events until about a month out. So it's hard to really train for strongman at the pro level like it is at the amateur level, where it's a little bit easier, where you know your events fairly far out from a contest. So like during my off season, I don't really focus on one lift. My big training philosophy is I am high volume pretty much as possible. With all of my online clients, I tell them, I train 4 days a week. That's what I like everybody else to do. And when I give you a rest day, go to work and then lay your ass on the couch and don't do anything. I think a lot of people they don't really understand how important rest actually is during a training program.
Sure.
And stuff that I put myself through and stuff that I put my clients through. Like I said, the volume and intensity is pretty freaking high all the time. And I just think that translate over the sport of strongman really well for what we do.
Okay. What do you consider high volume?
So, a typical week for some of my clients or myself, I break my training days up into, usually I'll have a squat day, a press day, a deadlift day, and then there's a strongman events day, depending on the client, if they have access to strongman equipment all week or whatever. So a typical squat day will be front squat. It'll be, 8 sets of 6, followed by back squat immediately, usually like 6 sets of 4 at a little bit of lighter weight. I stick my rest times, maximum 90 seconds in between sets, nothing more. And then there's usually between 5 and 8 accessory exercises in the 3 sets, 12 to 15 rep range for every accessory exercise after that. And again, same thing with the rest periods. On accessory stuff, I like to keep the rest periods around 60 seconds. So my clients' workouts are usually an hour and a half max. I try to get them through quick.
Do you coach mostly strongman athletes or strongman athletes?
Yeah, majority is strongman. I do have a few power lifters as well. But yeah, mostly people come to me for the strongman stuff.
So how often earlier in the interview, you mentioned a little bit about a 6-hour training day because you're working on events. How often do you throw in the event training days per week?
That's only once a week, and that's only when I get my specific events. So those big training days don't happen fairly often. Like I said, so for the Arnold Africa, I got my events 5 weeks out before the competition. So I essentially only had like 3, maybe 4 big training days to train all the events. I had an idea of what they were going to be, so I tried to work those in throughout the week. But once I knew what the events would be, that's when I kind of, dialed it in and had those bigger, longer training sessions.
Yeah, for sure. Do you find yourself doing a lot of, you mentioned the front squat. Do you find yourself doing a lot of front loaded work because core stability comes up so much in these events?
Yeah. I mean, I even do that with my high school athletes here, preaching that I think a front squat is the most underutilized lift that I see. Everybody wants to throw big weight on their back. But as far as translating over to strength athletics or really any athletic sport, the front squat, I think, is, second to none. Like you said, with core stability, look at posture, even breathing. I just think it's such an important tool that people aren't using enough.
Have you ever messed with a front rack yoke walk?
Have not.
Okay.
I've done a lot of overhead yoke walks. I do that for core stability. The front rack yoke walk is interesting though. I like that.
Yeah, I had a guy that I used to work out with who competed in a lot of strongman in California, and he was like, if I can front rack walk it, I can put it on my back all day long. So that was like
Yeah,
his thing.
I like that.
Yeah. So how has your diet? How did you eat when you had to maintain the 231 and under, and then kind of how has that changed now that you're with the
Yeah,
big
so
guys?
I've had the same nutrition coach throughout this entire process, and he's been great. He's a good friend of mine, and so when I was at the 231 class, my diet really hasn't changed too much. It's high carb, high protein, fairly low fat. When I was in the 231 class, I'd probably eat between 4 and 6 meals a day, depending on my training or an off day. If it was an off day, I'd pretty much only be having about 30 grams of carbs on a non-training day, which sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I'm a heavyweight, got my training days, my pre-workout meal has 150 grams of carbs. So, just my caloric intake is through the roof now compared to what it used to be. But still a lot of the same foods, a lot of chicken, rice, eat like a bodybuilder for the most part, and then on my training days, just to keep my calories high, I'll usually do a cheat meal after I train. So
when you won the World Log Lift Championship, you were the lightest guy there. That's correct, right?
yeah, I only weighed, I weighed like 246 that day.
Okay.
The next lightest guy was like 325.
Oh, Jesus. So have you found that your strength is ramping up rather quickly as you're like loading body weight on, or?
Yeah, I think it's not only that I'm getting stronger, but I'm just genuinely happier now. Like I mentioned earlier, that cut for 105 Worlds was miserable, and it made this more like a job than a hobby and something that I enjoy to do. So now that I'm a heavyweight, I hit a few weeks ago, I hit a 455 log, and my training protocol that day was actually I started at 300 pounds on the log and was adding 10 pounds every 60 seconds to a 1 rep max.
Oh.
And ended up with 455 fairly easily. Probably could have gone more, but just decided to call it because it was a good clean rep. And it was a 10-pound PR from what I've ever hit before. So I think, if I was actually going for a true 1 rep max, I think it'd be much higher. But just because of that training protocol that day, I was a little gassed.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that workout. I PR'd my snatch doing that exact same workout. It's a ton of volume, but for whatever reason, I think your CNS and everything is so fired up by the time you get there that.
Yeah, I think it's also easy to find a groove when you have to load the bar and you only have a few breaths and you just get comfortable in what you're doing. And then as a strength athlete, you just tap into that zone where you just kind of shut everything else out and go.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned that you eat low fat. What is there a reason for that? I'm just curious.
Generally, I feel like crap when I eat a high fat meal. I feel bloated, heavy. My stomach just doesn't really agree with it. I had a nutrition coach a few years back, and it was during the whole keto phase, where everyone was eating 7 pounds of bacon a day, and I was one of those guys, and I was like, oh yeah, you got to eat high fat to burn fat, and then he looked at me, he's like, yeah, but you're still fat. So I was like, well, shit, you're right. So, after that, we kind of switched everything up. And, I've definitely leaned out a lot more compared to where I was back then. That's not to say that I don't enjoy a pint of Ben & Jerry's a couple of times a week, though.
Right. What do you think about being lean as far as competing for maximal strength? Because I know, was it Zydrunas Savickas? He caused a lot of, headlines this year when he got really lean.
Yeah. I mean, I think, everybody in strength sports works out to some degree to look, okay naked.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's part of the reason why we work out.
Mm-hmm.
But, to me, being lean definitely has its benefits, but there's some drawback too. I mean, you look at Zydrunas, he hasn't been the same athlete since he cut that weight. He had 2 fairly severe injuries since he dropped down that weight. He wasn't able to compete in the Arnold because he, fractured a vertebrae training for the yoke for the Arnold this past year, hurt his arm training for the log lift world championship last year. So, while I think overall health benefits, shedding that extra body fat and not being, a gross slob is good to some extent, it also comes to a point where weight moves weight. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. Yeah, I'm sitting around, between 19 and 21% body fat. But to me, I can move well. I'm still fast in my moving events. I don't have sleep apnea. I'm not sucking wind after I do some conditioning events. So does anybody have to be, around 13%? Absolutely not. But I think, overall health benefits, you have to look at the risks, of being heavier.
Yeah, I want there to be studies done on the whole being lean and getting injured thing, because I think there's definitely a huge correlation there, and I don't know that we've explored it a lot.
Yeah, I think, a lot of people think that, perfect example is you look at Ronnie Coleman, who essentially is bound to a wheelchair now.
Really?
Yeah, he's had 7 spinal surgeries since he retired from bodybuilding.
Oh, Jesus, I didn't know that.
The guy, he's crushed. He spent years and years and years abusing his body and training so heavy and being so lean all the time that now the guy can barely stand up under his own power. Whereas you look at guys like Bill Kazmaier, who is almost 70 years old and still traveling to World's Strongest Man and can probably still beat anybody in an arm wrestling contest.
Yeah.
The guy is a freak.
Yeah.
So, I think, I agree with that, getting a study done about what happens when you get lean to bone density and stuff like that. Like what's the real cost of it?
Yeah, I think soft tissue pays a price. There's like a lot of different things.
Oh,
there.
For sure.
But so for kids that are listening to this, kids, young men, whatever, there's a lot of people that are like, dude, I just want to get fucking strong and big, bro. But I'm a hard gainer. What's your advice for them?
I mean, as cliche as it is, this sport of, strongman and strength athletics is, it's really a marathon and not a sprint. Listening to your body, and my motto is train smarter, not harder. So along with being a strength coach, I'm an athletic trainer and I work a lot with sports medicine. If you stay healthy, you're gonna get stronger. That's really what it comes down to. I see too many guys try to throw too much weight on the bar and end up getting hurt. And something as simple as a hamstring strain or a groin strain can set you back months. And people don't really realize that. So, training within your means. I just had a conversation with somebody the other day. They wanted to sign up for a competition with a yoke that is 300 pounds over their max that they've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, do you think it's worth it? I was like, fuck no, dude. The chance of you getting hurt is way too high. Why risk it? Let's work on just getting stronger for a little while. And I think a lot of people are just too caught up with the numbers game and worried about what everybody else is hitting on an event.
Mm-hmm.
They might hit like a 450 deadlift. And they're like, oh, but so-and-so who I competed against hit 600. So I need to do that. No, man, it's all about personal victories. A lot about strength sports is you're competing against yourself. So as much as, we want to win and you don't want to lose and you want to compete at your best, half the time you go into a competition, just try to PR every event. Do better than you did in training, come out not injured, and you'll end up being successful. Like I said earlier in the interview, I got my ass kicked for 1.5 years in this sport before I even saw the podium of a competition. I competed in 2011. I competed 12 times.
Oh, wow.
So I was doing almost I did one competition a month essentially. And I spent a lot of money. I drove a lot of miles to never come home with a trophy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's really what made me into the athlete that I am today because, I really enjoyed the hard work that I put in and saw it pay off now.
Yeah. And you had to have learned a ton going through that gauntlet of 11 competitions.
Oh, absolutely. My body was beat up. I was exhausted. I wasn't really training specifically for each competition, but I got the competition experience.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize that competing, it's not always the strongest guy that's going to win. It's the smartest and the one that doesn't make any mistakes. I've seen a lot of guys lose a competition because they do a keg carry and they're not leaning back far enough and they fall forward. They drop the keg.
Mm-hmm.
They don't bring their hands back on a farmer's walk, or they bring them back too far and the farmers dig into the ground and it drops them by a second on their time, but that costs them 3 places. So being meticulous when you compete and, like I said, just not making mistakes, that's the person that's usually going to end up on top.
So power lifters, they can get really strong, and that's an easy thing to compare this to just because it's also kind of maximal strength. They can get really strong for a meet, and that's usually what they do. With you, though, it seems like the strongman season, it's long, especially if you're doing 11 in a year. So what kind of tips do you have, or how do you even try to stay strong for such a long period of time? Because you really don't have time to taper, it seems like, and then also keeping your body going?
Yeah, so essentially right now I've been quote unquote in season for like 11 months straight. So the way I kind of do it is listen to your body, take deloads when you need to. I'm a big fan of I take a deload every fourth or fifth week. And when I say a deload, I mean like I'm not picking up anything heavier than 300 pounds on a bar. And like 300 pounds to me is relatively light. But I work in that probably 40 to 50% range on everything. Just kind of keep movement patterns tight. Don't fall off the bandwagon on my diet and nutrition, and really just kind of make my body feel good again, because there are some times in a training program where getting up in the morning hurts like a bitch. And that's when I know, hey, let's shut it down next week, and get my body and mind ready to get going again. So that's really the hardest part, is trying to map out where your contests are, especially when you're competing so often. For me, I'm doing 3 competitions in 6 weeks right now. So I have the Arnold South Africa this weekend, World's Strongest Man. I leave on the 16th. And then I'm competing in Austin, Texas, June 10th. So a lot of big shows tight together. But the biggest thing for me is just staying healthy and keeping my body right.
Yeah, I think I've done a few times actually where I've competed a lot in a small period of time, and it seems like it's a bigger deal. The hardest part is keeping yourself from getting fucked up in between the events, but also training effectively.
Yeah, so for me, my biggest thing is I have 1 week in between the Arnold Africa and when I leave for World's Strongest Man. So essentially I'm going to get 2 workouts. And those are my only 2 workouts to train the World's Strongest Man events. Which is intimidating in some ways, but it's also to the point where I'm competing at such a high level in strongman where I'm expected to be good at everything no matter what. So training specifically for those events really shouldn't matter at this point.
Yeah.
Essentially, I'll get 2 good workouts in on those events that I have in the qualifiers, and then fly out to Botswana.
It's funny because I think a lot of times people look at high level strength athletes like yourself, and this isn't even just strongman, like CrossFit's the same way. They always want to know what the top guys are doing. When at the end of the day, the top guys are like listening to their body, like you said, and the only way you're going to really get that intrinsic knowledge about yourself and how you react to training is by putting yourself through these kind of gauntlets and getting to that level.
Yeah, I mean, as much as it sucks, is there's no quick way to find out. There's no, golden rule answer. It's put your body through hell. Look, see what works for you. I mean, the biggest thing is when I talk to my client, when I take on a new client, I have a long conversation with them to talk about their training history, their competition history, what's worked for them, what doesn't work for them. I tell them what's worked for me in the past, because what works for me might not work for somebody else, and I completely understand that as a coach and as an athlete. Some of the things I see my competitors do, I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm going to do that. Just because I know it wouldn't work for me. So it's just, like I said, this sport sucks because it takes so long to get good at it, but it's also rewarding now because I get to travel the world and do what I love.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Do you have, and I don't know what your sponsorship deals are or anything, but do you take supplements, or do they have a place kind of in your training?
Not really. I do pre-workout sometimes if I train early in the morning. But that's pretty much it. As far as sponsors, it's only equipment sponsors for me. I don't have any supplement sponsors. So right now I'm with SBD USA, and Wow Straps. They're my, 2 sponsors that I'm working with right now. But yeah, I mean, I like food way too much to just drink protein shakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I always tell people whole real food, and usually you can, even if you take a lot of supplements, like a lot of proteins and shit, you can cut them out and then see if anything changed. Usually,
exactly.
So strongman is a open, meaning not drug tested sport. Is that correct, or
that's correct?
Okay.
Nope, not drug tested.
Okay, so kind of what's your opinion on performance enhancing drugs?
To me, it's. A lot of guys at this level do it. It's kind of a don't ask, don't tell rule. But we all want to see everybody compete at their strongest. The great thing about strongman is whoever lifts the most amount of weight is going to win. And we don't care really what you do as long as it doesn't look too sketchy. I think the nice thing is most of the guys at this level are smart about it. For World's Strongest Man, I had to get a full blood panel done to make sure I was healthy enough to compete at this competition.
Really?
As do all the athletes.
What are
We
they
have to
looking
get
for?
They look at everything. So they're looking at creatinine levels, they're looking at red blood cell counts, they're looking at liver enzymes, anything and everything to see if there are any red flags to give them a reason for you not to compete.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the nice thing is, the people that are running the competition are looking out for athlete safety. And, they want to make sure nobody gets too fucked up when they compete. So that's why we have to get a full medical clearance before we do.
God, that seems like such a better way to go about it instead of like fucking dragging people in front of Congress who are trying to be better at their sport. Just make sure the athletes are fucking healthy.
Well, that's the thing. You know what? I mean, so I did 2 NFL internships when I was in college. If people think that pro athletes aren't taking anything, they're fucking blind, to be honest.
Right.
Everybody's doing stuff. It's just most guys are smart enough and know who to go to, so they don't get caught. And that's really what it comes down to. It's what makes professional sports great. I think a lot of guys end up being healthier because of what they do. And when you look at it, it's their livelihood. It's how they make money. So to me, how they do that, really, as long as they're putting on a show and they're performing at a high level, let them do it because everybody else is.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So I hate to even bring this up because I feel like the fucking Huffington Post chasing headlines, but obviously you've been very open about being gay in the sport. Your Instagram name, I think, is World's Strongest Gay, which is fucking awesome. Yeah, but so I just kind of want to know a little bit about maybe your experience with that and how it's been.
Yeah, so I came out back in 2014 when I met my boyfriend, then now fiance Joey. Yeah, and it was scary, but exhilarating all at the same time because I had no idea what I was going to get for a reaction.
Yeah.
I told all my closest friends first, and they were awesome about it. And then pretty much it was just opening it up to the rest of the strongman community. When I came out, everybody was great about it. There were a few goons in, the starting strongman group who were assholes.
Really?
The only people that were jerks were the ones that didn't understand what strongman is and, how much of a brotherhood it is. I was getting text messages from guys like Derek Poundstone, and high level pro strongman saying, hey, don't listen to what these assholes are saying. We got your back and we support you no matter what. So it was really like the newbies in the sport that, kind of were quick to judge and say stuff. But other than that, it was freaking awesome. I think coming out made me an, exponentially better strongman competitor.
Really?
I just had this new renowned sense of confidence in myself where I could let my guard down and just do my thing. And, I think it showed. 2014 is when I came out. That was my first year at America's Strongest Man, and I took second place. Took second place again in 2015, and then 2016 had the year of my life where won the North American Log and Deadlift Championships, won the Log Lift World Championships. Now 2017, I'm going to World's Strongest Man. So I think it's catapulted me. Not just because I'm gay, but just because I'm able to, finally be myself. That allowed me to be a better competitor.
Sure. Do you think is your outlook now that it's important to you to be like an ambassador for the community, or do you think like it's 2017 and like who gives a fuck?
I mean, yes and no. So there is I've had a lot of people message me thanking me for what I did, and to me it's like it shouldn't matter.
Right.
But the thing is, it's always going to be it is a talking point. It always will be.
Mm-hmm.
You look at this sport of hypermasculinity, essentially is what it is.
Sure.
Nobody expects a gay man to be able to do the things that these, straight guys are doing, but really it shouldn't matter because I'm just as strong as the next guy.
Stronger, you can make an argument for.
Yeah, as far as being an ambassador, I welcome, talking to people and, that's why I think I'm so open about everything and why my fiance has been so great about everything. One of the things that we started is we, did a hashtag. It's breaking the stereotype. Trying to break the stereotype of what people think a gay man actually is. So when Joey and I started dating, he stepped into the gym really for the first time, and something I never experienced because I was being a fake straight guy for so long and got into the sport when I was, kind of doing that, is the anxiety that a gay guy feels when they get into the gym and the stigma that every straight guy thinks that a gay guy wants to hook up with them, you know,
Yeah.
it's unbelievably, true. And that's why you don't see most gay men getting into into powerlifting or strongman or bodybuilding or into really any of these strength sports, is because of this fear that when they walk into the gym, they're just going to be judged so hard by all the straight guys around that they can't ask for help of how to do a bench press or how to squat or how to deadlift. And that's kind of what we want to stop. And we want to empower other gay men to be able to walk into a gym and get under a barbell and, squat or ask somebody for help and kind of have them realize that they can do all this stuff too.
Yeah, sure. So since you came out, then when you walk into a gym, you talk about this anxiety. Is it palpable? Do you feel it to be different, or have you?
Personally, I never did. My fiance has talked about it a lot. And he said that's one of the reasons why he never really went into the gym. Like, he was a Planet Fitness guy before he met me because, one, it was a cheap gym membership, and two, he didn't, feel like he had to train that hard when he was there. He could just kind of do a, bodybuilding.com workout and just kind of do his own thing and wouldn't have to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why he never, even when he was in college, he was a track athlete and he played soccer, but he didn't even feel comfortable doing like a team lift in the weight room because he didn't want to have to ask for help there.
That sucks.
So, but now, we're trying, like I said, he's way more comfortable doing it, because I have kind of thrown him into this world. And like I said, just trying to change that dynamic as much as we can.
So 2-part question. Is he strong as fuck? And if so, does that make you the actual world's first power couple?
I think he's really strong. He actually just he competed this past weekend up here in Connecticut, and he won his weight class for the strongman competition.
Jesus.
But yeah, I mean, he's hit a 270-pound log press, and he weighs like 190. He's deadlifted 500 pounds before. So yeah, he's definitely strong. He's awesome at the moving events just because of his track background and playing soccer.
Mm-hmm.
His third time ever doing Atlas stones, he loaded a 300-pound stone.
Oh,
so, damn. Yeah, he's definitely strong. And, his background in athletics, I think, helped him get that way. And I like to think of us as the world's strongest couple. That would be, that might be our new Instagram name.
Yeah, that's accurate, I think. Definitely the strongest I've ever known. Nice, man. Well, so the Lionheart Kicker is the final question, and this is kind of based on everything that you know and everything that you've done so far. If you could give advice and it was guaranteed that it would be translated to every language, everybody would hear it. This can be lifting, this can be life, this can be whatever you want, but you had a platform for a second. What would you tell people?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned, especially being a gay strongman, is, be true to who you are, and that's going to make you more successful at everything you do in life. I've experienced it firsthand. I really feel what has catapulted me to this level in strongman, because I haven't had to put on this facade of being a straight guy. I can finally be my gay self. And like I said, like being true to who I am and, accepting me as a person has really made other people accept me. And like I said, it's why I am where I am today.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any advice to kind of steer people in the direction of like kind of figuring out who, because I think a bigger problem might be, especially as you're coming up, figuring out who your true self really even is.
The biggest thing is, surrounding yourself with the right people and finding your niche. Find what makes you happy, and run with it. That's what I did with strongman. And, I, going back to, my sexuality, I knew I was gay for a long time, but didn't want to realize it. And I think that's what held me back for so many years, because I was putting so much effort into being somebody I wasn't, that when the light bulbs finally went off and everything clicked, that's when I was finally Rob. And it took me 22 fucking years to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's great to finally be here.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a journey process.
Yes.
Cool. So for people that listen to this and are kind of inspired by your journey and want to follow along, how can they do that?
You can find me on Facebook. My athlete page is Pro Strongman Rob Kearney. You already mentioned my Instagram name. It's World's Strongest Gay. Mm-hmm. So I'm always on there. Feel free to message me on either of those. More than happy to get back to you, answer any questions, help you out any way I can.
Cool. And then, and we'll link to those in the show notes of this episode. And then for people that are interested in your coaching, are you taking on new clients or?
Yeah, I am. I definitely have a few spots. Put a disclaimer out. This month is crazy because I'm traveling 3 out of the 4 weeks of May. I'm going to have, limited access to my email and Facebook and stuff like that. But I would, absolutely take on any new clients. Just, be understanding if I, take a little bit longer to reply than usual. But I'm usually really quick. My phone's pretty much always on me. If you do sign up with coaching for me, it's pretty much full service. I send weekly programs. Love to get video feedback. I talk to my athletes throughout the week. It annoys the shit out of my fiance because I'm always talking to them and not to him as much.
Yeah.
But I really care about the people I work with and want to see them succeed.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you guys have the same problems that straight people do. I didn't want you to crack the code too far.
No.
All right, man. Well, hey, thanks for being on. And hopefully by the time this episode airs, we're talking to the world's strongest man.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. I appreciate it.
All right, brother. Good luck. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Lionheart Radio. I hope that the information from today's show will make you fitter, happier, and healthier. For the show notes of this episode and every episode, head to www.lionheartrad.io. Yep, just like Lionheart Radio. And please, if you have the time, head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. It really helps us to know that we're on the right track and delivering you reliable information and value. As always, feedback is welcome. If you have any comments on the show or would like to suggest a guest, send me an email at rick@luavive.com. That's LUAVIVE.com. Thanks for your support, and we will see you next time.
Bitch, I feel good. Don't I look stupendous? My shine is so endless, and shit you can do to end this. Even when I'm dead, niggas still gon' bump that chip shit. Coke, white, Escalade on cinches for you dipshit. So you won't forget this. Midwest nigga be the code.